I eliminate HIIT workouts altogether.
Why should women not do HIIT workouts?
If you're fighting for your breath, your body's under too much stress. Say they're following a specific amount of calories, but you're not worried about what you're eating. You're just going for the calories alone. If your body's not digesting the nutrients properly, it's not going to do anything for you.
What percentage of your clientele has some sort of gut health issue?
Severe gut issues, probably about 20 to 30. 90% of them have some form of bloating or gas or constipation when they first begin with me.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about was how beneficial weight training specifically is for the gut. A lot of people don't know this, and particularly women.
The way I describe to people with losing weight is like HIIT workouts will help you lose weight. Strength training will help you lose fat.
How do you tell people to eat more fruits? Is it the fiber?
It's the fiber, it's the prebiotic. My only carb source were fruits. And I was eating, I think maybe 3,000 to 3,500 calories, and I was consistently just dropping weight. With nutrient diversity in your microbiome, I'll get a lot of people who have been on very strict meal plans, whether they're bodybuilders or they're women who've been crash dieting for however long. There's no diversity in the gut. So as soon as you start implementing other foods, your stomach just blows up.
So this is a very fun episode of the Gut Check podcast because not only one of my favorite people to learn from, but also my brother-in-law on the podcast, John Rojas. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Orange County. Welcome back to Orange County. It's a nice and beautiful sunny day for you. John is an online fat loss coach and has just had some remarkable wins with his clients. So I wanted to just dive into all things nutrition and diet, a lot on exercise, weight training. So we're going to go through it all and hopefully give everyone some really practical takeaways.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm always watching these on your on your story or on your page and everything. So it's really cool. I've never seen a podcast set up like this.
Yeah, neither had I.
But yeah, so I mean, my history is I became a personal trainer when I was 18, I think like a couple months after I graduated high school. I took my certification test, I got certified, and I've been pretty much training clients ever since. And then a couple years later, I started coaching people online. I opened the gym when I was about 22, and then quickly realized I did not want to be in the in-person space. I realized that most of my clients were dealing with a lot of gut health issues, hormonal issues, and it's just not something. When you're working inside the gym, you can't really help people too much with it because you're on limited time. So I started coaching people online and slowly transitioned out of the gym space because I felt like what I was meant to do was not be stuck inside of a gym. I like to communicate with my clients. I like to fix more than just people's form. And that's what pretty much became, my passion for working online.
And now, I mean, your cadence of conversation, I've seen this firsthand with your clients. I mean, you're in touch with them every day, right? I mean, you have a formal check-ins, but this is something that you're really helping them day in and day out at this point.
Yeah, we pretty much communicate every day. And I tell my clients, I mean, we have a mandatory, check-in once a week. And I have some people who I really only hear from once a week, and because they're either doing super well or they're managing everything really well. But I'm like, if you need me every day, please, text me every day. I have, every time I open my phone, it's like 10 messages from different people, because the whole purpose is to help you become more self-sufficient because, with a personal trainer, you're pretty much coming in, getting a good workout and leaving, but you're not really learning anything that you can take home and do on your own. So that's the whole purpose of, with gut health and, hormones is helping people manage their day-to-day without needing, prescriptions, medications, things like that.
You can have, even if you can afford it and you're paying for these fancy and expensive personal trainers, you can do all of that well, but if the core, which is the nutrition, frankly, the gut health aspect and your hormones are not in a healthy place and not balanced or as balanced as they can be, the working out, so to speak, right, the muscle building really isn't as effective as it could be anyways.
Yeah, the vanity behind working out is it's only going to get you so far. Like the cool Instagram picture or, walking on the beach, it's like, that's cool. But at the end of the day, if you're not understanding why you're feeling the pain you're feeling, why you're so bloated, why you have gas, Like the vanity parts, you're going to feel good for the, hour out of the day when you're working out and you take a quick picture. But when you go home and you go to bed, like that's the important part, is understanding why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
You've had just some of these like amazing, and they really are, and everyone sees these online. They are very inspirational case studies, right? These clients that are now friends, are now essentially kind of family, right? You've gotten to know these people so well, and quite literally changed their lives. People have lost, 130 pounds, which is just amazing. So when you take those types of studies, right? Those case studies where it's like this client's coming in, they're obviously have a desire to change, which first and foremost is huge, right? And that's where it all starts. But you have a client like that just is very focused on weight loss. Where do you start?
Everybody's approach is different. With like something one of my mentors had once said is, the mechanism is always the same. So like the mechanism of action and how you're going to help them is the same, but the approach can be different.
Yeah.
So like someone, you can put them on a very strict meal plan, on a strict workout regimen, and help them lose 20 pounds. Someone else, you could just tell them, hey, eat more fruits and vegetables, go on walks more, and it'll have the same effect. You just slowly increase the intensity. And the whole, like, on the psychology standpoint, is people need to feel a reward.
Yeah.
And so if you get someone who's not used to working out, they're not used to eating healthy, and you have them do very strict protocols, they're going to see it as very intimidating. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. Like, if this is what working out and being healthy looks like, I want no part of it.
Right.
And so I have people do so basic, I guess, make such basic changes,
Yep.
that eventually they're like, hey John, I'm getting kind of bored. Can you give me some more responsibility?
Yeah.
Then eventually it's like, okay, well now let's have 4 meals a day. Let's have this amount of protein per day. Let's do these specific workouts. And eventually they're like, okay, I'm getting the rhythm down. Can we make this a little bit more intense? And we just kind of slowly work from there.
Yeah. With fat loss particularly, what role does the gut microbiome play? Why is it so important?
It pretty much plays a part in everything. Say they're following a specific amount of calories, but you're not worried about what you're eating. You're just going for the calories alone. If your body's not digesting the nutrients properly, it's not going to do anything for you. So, for example, say someone is eating 150 grams of protein per day. They're eating, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, but they're still bloated every day. Those nutrients aren't being absorbed into the intestinal lining. They're not being absorbed by the tissues. They're not being distributed properly. So they're not doing their job. So that protein is not being used. It's just you're pretty much just putting matter into your body, hoping it does something, but it's not. You're still bloated. So it's very important to understand that your digestion needs to be working properly in order for those nutrients to be doing their job.
What percentage of your clientele has some sort of gut health issue?
I'd say severe gut issues, probably about 20 to 30. But just overall bloating, usually I'd say 90% of them have some form of bloating or gas or constipation when they first begin with me. And then depending on their response, I will be able to assess how serious it actually is.
What are the first things that you look at with your clients when it comes to gut health?
So typically I kind of take an intake form and I say, okay, how bad is the bloating? Have them kind of rate it, and have them fill out an MSQ, so a metabolic stress questionnaire. So it'll tell me how bad their histamine issues are they itchy, they have allergies. But usually if I just write the program for them, I'll kind of start off pretty basic. If it's just general bloating, people normalize bloating. Like people are saying, hey, I'm bloated after I eat breakfast, or I'm bloated when after I work out. Say, okay, it could be normal. Let's just fix up the diet.
Yep.
If I fix their diet, I give them just healthy foods and they're not bloated anymore, it's not that big of an issue.
Yeah.
But if I give them healthy foods and they're still feeling bloated after, it's like, okay, then we dig a little bit further, maybe get testing done. But yeah, usually I just play I let their body play the field and see how things respond. If things aren't getting better, then I go a little bit more specific.
With everyone, one of the things we've talked about is how important blood testing is. So I'd love to hear you just talk about that and how you incorporate blood testing in your work. If someone's going in for the first time to get blood work, what are some of these key markers that they should be looking for?
Yeah, I always have everyone do a full comprehensive panel, because typically when you go to your primary care physician, they'll test just the basics. So, sometimes they'll test. One of the biggest issues I see is that doctors will only test TSH when they're testing your thyroid, but that's not telling you everything, because it's not telling you the bioavailability of your T3, your T4, your reverse T3. So I always make sure that the full thyroid panel is tested. We're looking at estrogen, progesterone. That way you can see if there's an estrogen dominance standpoint to it. But pretty much I want to see your thyroid, I want to see your progesterone, your estrogen, all sex hormones essentially, your cortisol as well. and depending how out of range or in range they are, because they can come back and they're all in the green, but relative to one another, they could be out of range.
Cortisol is the number one cause of dysbiosis, right? The stress. So when you're looking at cortisol, what are some of the things that you're encouraging your clients to do? I don't know if you've got particular workouts, particular dietary adjustments, but if someone has high cortisol or is just dealing with a lot of stress, what are a few things that they should be looking at and that they can do?
With cortisol, the way I describe it to people, it's just in layman's terms, is that your body does not know. It cannot differentiate between stressors. So you can be stressed about work, you can be stressed about your marriage, you can be stressed about school, you could be stressed by working out, like working out's a stressor on the body, or you could be stressed by being chased by a bear, right? And so this is an analogy I use with people. Have you ever heard this one before?
No.
So
This is great.
So I always say, look, let's imagine you're being chased by a bear. When you're being chased by a bear, there's two things out of many, but two that, relate to the common person that you're not worried about. You're not worried about eating food, and you're not worried about mating, right? You're not worried about having sex in that moment. So your sex hormones are not functioning. They're not being produced. They're not the priority in that moment. Your body just wants to survive.
Right.
And you're not worried about eating either. So if say for example, getting chased by that bear, you're not worried about any of those until you're finally safe. You can say, okay, the bear is gone. We're not worried about this anymore. And so now you can finally eat. Your appetite comes back, and things start, processing the way they're supposed to. So let's remove the bear. We put work in that situation. It's the same exact thing.
Right.
Your body doesn't know about the bear, doesn't know about work, it doesn't know anything else that's going on in your life. So I tell people, look, your job is that bear. So we have to be able to control the controllables. Yep. If you're always stressed, there's going to be digestion issues. There's going to be hormone production issues. There's going to be appetite issues. So what I have people do is I have them control the controllables. The reality is we're going to be stressed about work. We're going to be stressed about school. There's things that are going to happen in life, and stress is a good part of life. Now, how can we mitigate the stress, and how can we mitigate what we can control? We can control what we eat. We can control how we train. We can control how we sleep. We also can control how much caffeine we intake.
Right.
So what I have people do with, as far as workouts, to your question, is I eliminate HIIT workouts altogether. Weight training is obviously a big part of it.
Yep.
Now, the intensity of the weight training is important as well.
Yep.
So I'll have clients like bodybuilding competitors. They'll come to me and they're like, they're usually bodybuilding competitors are very 100% type A people. They just want to go as hard as they possibly can. And I say, look, let's pull the intensity back a little bit. Let's keep a couple reps in the tank and just go through the motions and get the benefits of exercise without going with, very intense stimulation. And again, that's lowering the stress on the body, lowering systemic stress so your body can properly recover.
I think that the HIIT workouts, in a certain sense, are kind of on their way out, but they certainly were a thing for a while. I am totally a victim of this, working way too long of days, not sleeping enough, and doing these now kind of silly is what I would call them, HIIT workouts. Like most of my 20s, right? Why should women not do HIIT workouts?
If you're fighting for your breath, your body's under too much stress, right? And again, this is depending on the specific person. There's a time and place for HIIT workouts.
Yep.
But if you're trying to improve your hormone function, you try and improve your digestion, we got to always go back to the bear situation. If you're out of breath, if your body is fighting for breath, that means your heart rate is a little bit too high for what you are trying to do. So like, for example, if someone's doing cardio, I have them, keep their heart rate around 130, 140 beats per minute. Okay. I'm like, look, if you start fighting for your breath, just lower the intensity a bit, check your heart rate. You're probably going a little bit too high.
What are the best types of cardio?
It depends on the situation. So like the effectiveness or efficiency depends on what the person's goals are. But typically I like the Stairmaster, I like the elliptical, treadmill, or honestly just walking outside, just brisk walking outside. I prefer that more than anything. Stairmasters usually just like machines are more are easier to program for people because it's predictable. Like you have to keep up with the machine. Whereas if you tell someone, hey, go for a 20-minute brisk walk, are they actually brisk walking, or are they on their phone, or are they scrolling on TikTok?
Right.
So from a coaching standpoint, I like to program the machines because it's more predictable for me.
The bear analogy is great because you mentioned this, and it is so very true that the fight or flight type of stress that we have in our bodies is good. If there's an earthquake, if there's a fire, if there's something that you need to respond to, you need that type of adrenaline and you need that type of cortisol. That's a good type of cortisol. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was how beneficial weight training specifically is for the gut. A lot of people don't know this, and particularly women.
It's beneficial because it's improving your muscle mass. So the more muscle mass you have, the higher your BMR will be, the better your metabolism will function. And so that's why the cortisol tied into weight training, it gives you a way to kind of release your stress, but it also allows you to program your workouts in a way that it will allow you to kind of be more aware of that cortisol response. The way I describe to people with losing weight is like HIIT workouts will help you lose weight.
Yeah.
Strength training will help you lose fat.
Right.
Because losing weight, you're losing muscle mass and losing body fat.
Right.
And that's when the cortisol starts to stimulate, starts to overproduce. And same thing with, losing muscle mass is the last thing that anyone wants.
When you're losing weight, not just fat, when you're losing weight, you're also losing muscle, right? And especially as we age, and this is my big concern with the GLP-1 drugs, among many other things, but is that you've got a lot of, let's just take a kind of stereotypical woman, right, in your 40s. And there are people, and there is a time and a place where this drug can be really helpful. If you are morbidly obese, if you do need the drug, I do think there's times and places. If someone needs to lose weight, wants to lose weight, what are some other options, right? And how should they be thinking about this if they need to lose some weight, but don't necessarily want to be on the drug, or frankly can't afford it, because that's a lot of other people.
Yeah. Well, the GLP-1 is kind of like, this is how we all, just as humans, we take things. We take it and then we just push it further and further, and then it just becomes part of our life. It's like caffeine. Like you can drink a cup of coffee in the morning to kind of get your day started, but now it's turned into people drinking 1, 2, 3 energy drinks a day because they're like, I liked how I felt in the morning. I want to feel like that all day. And so same thing with GLP-1 drugs. They see people lose 40, 50 pounds. They're like, oh, I could keep doing this. Let me try this and maybe lose 5 to 10 pounds. And then they like how they felt. They like that they're not getting very hungry. And then they just keep running with it.
Well, and 2/3 of the weight is regained.
Yes, exactly.
So it's this awful yo-yo effect.
Well, you never learned anything. You never learned how you lost the weight. You just numbed your digestive system. You dropped your ghrelin levels, and you're like, okay, I don't need to be hungry. So this is what I want to take. So typically, what I recommend for people is number one, if you're not morbidly obese, you're not diabetic, there's no reason to take the GLP-1 drugs. Even with people who are very, like I mentioned earlier, people who are very new to losing weight or very new to training, you just go to the gym 2 to 3 days a week. Even if, because, this is something that's very prominent, is people are very intimidated at the gym. Yeah. Like they find it intimidating that people are staring at them. I say go 2-3 days a week. I've done this with a couple people, and don't even work out. Go in, go like walk around, touch a couple machines, go maybe use the bathroom, and then leave. And we'll worry about the food part throughout the week. But I say just go and just, what's the word? Exposure therapy. Yeah. Just use that. Have fun, just go touch some things around, pretend like you belong or feel like you belong. Go to the bathroom, leave, and then we'll go home and finish the rest of your day. Eventually, you're gonna feel more confident being there. Now, if you're already in the gym, just go in 2 to 3 days a week. If you don't have someone writing your workouts for you, just maybe walk on the treadmill. Yeah. Lift a couple weights, and it's all just getting yourself to feel comfortable in that space and feeling like you belong there. Because that's what's stopping most people, is they just don't feel like they belong there. They feel like everyone's watching, especially with social media. There's videos of people, and so it becomes an intimidating space for a lot of people. As far as eating goes, more fruits. It's such a generic piece of advice to eat more fruits, but it's such a powerful switch that people.
Why do you tell people to eat more fruits? Is it the fiber?
It's the fiber. It's the prebiotics. I went on a all fruit diet just to kind of try it out with a friend for about 3 months. My only carb source were fruits. Yeah. And I was eating, I think maybe 3,000 to 3,500 calories, and I was consistently just dropping weight. And
so it was fruits and then proteins.
Fruits and proteins, and I think the only other carbs I was having were oats. Okay. But I had the most energy I've ever had in my life in that moment. I was kind of stepping away from bodybuilding at the time. I just wanted to try more functional workouts, and I just felt amazing while I was doing it. So now I kind of balance it out a little bit more with clients. But the issue with, like you were mentioning earlier, with nutrient diversity in your microbiome, is that I'll get a lot of people who have been on very strict meal plans, whether they're bodybuilders or they're women who've been crash dieting for however long. Yeah. There's no diversity in the gut. Yep. So as soon as you start implementing other foods, your stomach just blows up.
And that's very common when someone is on a strict meal plan, whether it's for prepping for a show or it's just this chronic dieting. Why is this chronic dieting so damaging? long term?
Because you're pretty much setting your body up to not be able to process, and when I say normal foods, I mean just like fruits and vegetables and other carbs and other protein sources, because you see something online and then you follow this like salad diet and you're only eating very specific foods, or even like very big bodybuilders as well, they only eat chicken and rice.
Yeah.
They don't want to eat fruits for the sugar, they don't want to eat veggies because they don't want to get bloated, and so their body's only accustomed to just rice, chicken, and just the basic foods that people promote, and that's damaging to the gut because your gut's not able to process those foods. There's no intestinal lining that leaky gut starts to appear, and so it's a very big issue where people just are eating the same exact things and there's no switch.
The other thing I would just say on the GLP-1 piece, going back to that for a minute, is that if 95% of Americans are fiber deficient, right? So you talk about fruits and oats, right? These are fiber rich foods, and we're not eating enough of these types of foods. And we know that, right? Women are only getting an average of 15 grams of fiber a day. They need at least 25. Men are also only getting an average of 15 grams of fiber a day. They need like almost 40 grams of fiber. So what happens when you're not getting enough fiber? You're hungry. And so part of this whole thing also with weight loss and satiety is that when you're eating highly processed foods, not enough fruits and vegetables, just frankly just not a diverse diet of complex carbs, sweet potatoes, proteins, fruits and vegetables, these types of things, you're hungry, right? You're eating all these calories and like nothing is filling you up, and then that's going to lead to a bunch of problems. So that's the bigger thing with the GLP-1 drugs as well, is like one of the number one adverse events we're seeing is GI issues, because here it comes this drug and how it's working in the stomach. Most people that are going on the drug are not changing their diet at all. Yeah. And that's my bigger concern, is just like the long-term implications of that.
Well, and here's where the big companies will get you, is you're like, okay, we know we're low in protein, we know you're low in fiber, so we're going to make a protein bar or a protein supplement that has fiber in it, but it's insoluble fiber.
Yes.
And then they're putting these low grade, low quality protein sources in there. So now you're stuffing yourself with fiber. You're saying, oh no, I eat plenty of fiber, I eat plenty of protein. But you're getting it all from protein bars, from these very highly processed foods, and you're not really getting the benefit of the fiber or the protein. And so then you start developing more gut issues. You're not understanding why, because you eat plenty of fiber, right? So that's where these brands they'll just throw fiber or protein on their marketing, right. And they say, hey, look, buy this will help you out, when in reality that's the root of the issue.
I will say the tide is turning for sure, and a lot of this is changing due to, I think, some of the good benefits of social media and communication. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot is all of these things are intertwined, but specifically for women, the number one hormone imbalance is estrogen dominance, right? And the gut, again, plays a huge role in estrogen detox, estrogen metabolism. So it's called the estrobolome, right? This subset of bacteria that's in our gut microbiomes as women that's responsible for detoxing and metabolizing estrogen. So how do you approach hormones? I mean, we're talking about blood tests first, but what are some of the other things that women and men should know about hormones and focusing on maintaining healthy hormone levels?
Yeah, that was a pretty broad question, because it's so, like, when someone first gets their panel, like as you mentioned with estrogen dominance, I like people to be symptomatic before we really kind of address any real issue, because it's in reality it's going to be hard to find someone who gets labs done and everything is perfect.
Right.
So right. I always like to, if the person's feeling great, then we'll try to fix a couple of things, but I don't like to spend too much time or money with supplementation to fix things that aren't necessarily an issue. Mm-hmm. And so with estrogen dominance, that what becomes an issue is that what people don't realize is the estrogen dominance starts at the liver. Because if the liver clearance is blocked and we're not producing enough enzymes to clear the toxins, then the estrogen dominance is going to remain there. And so we'll get labs back where estrogen is very, very high, but we're not necessarily using all the estrogen. It's just being repurposed and circulated into the gut, but it's not actually in the serum. It's not doing anything for us. Yeah. And so that's when we'll have issues like endometriosis, PCOS, and so you're very symptomatic to those high estrogen issues. You may be breaking out, you're very bloated, and then progesterone is super, super low as well. And so that's when you get into issues with fertility, women who can't conceive, and it's really that's really where it depends on the person. Like, what issue are we having, and what problem are we trying to solve?
for women that are dealing with estrogen dominance, that comes back, what are some of the things that you're encouraging them to do?
So stress mitigation right away. So we'll kind of pull down on training a bit. We'll switch food around to see what food is there any food that's causing bloating. We'll kind of either eliminate it or slowly reduce it. Like I have a lot of people who will start with me and they can't digest fruits. They can't digest fruits or veggies. So
Can't digest them, meaning that just like they get bloated.
yeah, as soon as they eat like an apple, they get super bloated like right away. I'll say, okay, look, let's maybe not have a full apple. Let's have 20 grams. 20 grams is like a little small bite of an apple. So we'll have that in one meal, and then we'll run that for a full week, and then we'll add another 20 grams, and then after that we'll add another 20 grams, and so
And it's
eventually,
just because their body doesn't know how to process it.
yeah, there's just no nutrient diversity, so their body can't
Jeez.
digest it very well. It's very, very common. I had one girl who just could not digest any veggies, and she said every time I eat broccoli or every time I eat any fruits, I blow up like a balloon. So it's kind of we pull everything out, whatever's causing issues, and then we slowly repopulate the gut with it.
So it sounds like, I mean, one of the biggest kind of scams, let's just call it, or problems of this crash dieting and chronic dieting is just you're totally stripping your body of nutrient diversity, right? And then long term, when you add those things back in, your body is just in total shock.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, like, whenever I write meal plans for people, there's several different types of foods in there. Like, there's no meal plan I'll give out that is just chicken and rice, unless you are, 3 or 4 weeks out of a show, and we're just the main concern right now is just looking a specific way. It's not overall health. So that's why every meal plan has to be diverse. It has to have different types of foods, different fruits, different veggies, different sources of carbs to make sure your body is being exposed to different types of foods.
If you only have 30 minutes a day, and I was talking to someone the other day, and this is kind of specifically for someone that's high stress job, you literally only have 30, maybe on a good day, 45 minutes a day. How do you use that time most effectively in the gym?
I like to do supersets.
Okay.
So essentially with antagonizing muscles, I think that's the word.
Yep.
And so, like, for example, if you're doing bicep curls,
Yep.
you superset that with triceps. So that way you're pretty much just splitting up, or you're increasing your efficiency and decreasing your time.
Okay.
And there's very like small things I'll have people do. For example, I'll have them warm up next to the machine you're supposed to start with. Don't go all the way to the warm up room, do all your stretching and everything, because you're adding an extra 10-15 minutes to your workout. And you're like, oh, by the time the warm up is done, you only have 10 minutes left for the actual workout.
Right.
So that, and I have them, go with your warm ups, because everyone should be warming up for your workout as far as like warm up sets.
Yep.
So just run through all the warm up sets right away, and then go straight into your working sets and do supersets. So if you're doing chest one day, do back with a superset. So chest press with maybe pull-ups or push-ups and pull-ups. Then biceps and triceps, you could do hamstrings with quads, and just superset your workouts. That way, instead of a 45-minute workout, you can turn it into a 20 or 25-minute workout.
With these types of supersets and just in general, right, just reduction of stress overall, how important is breath work?
I incorporate breath work with anyone who is willing to do it. And the reason I say willing to do it is because if you force someone to do breath work, they're not going to get anything out of it. Like breath work, meditation, you're going to be laying there doing it, and you're like, this is so dumb. I don't know why I'm doing this. And so I will have clients, I'll ask them, I say, look, how, on scale 1 to 10, how stressed are you? And they'll say like 8 or 9. I say, are you willing to put aside 10 minutes of your time to lower that stress? And if you say yes, I got you. Because you already said yes. So I'm going to drill you until you do this breath work. And so I have I don't know if you know this, I'm certified as a breathwork facilitator.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, so I went through a breathwork facilitation course, so that way I can take people through, and I know the different breathwork practices. And so it just depends on the type of breathwork that you need, or the type of, I guess, stimulation that you need. So if there's some that are called downshifters, there are some that are called energizers, and there's some others that are more spiritually based that I don't use as often, just because I don't really have many clients who are, in the spiritual realm.
I will say firsthand, I had a 30-hour unmedicated birth, and nothing will teach you how to use breath work like that. And I think one of the most helpful things for lowering cortisol, and not just like for the day-to-day stress management too, is breath work. It's why we always encourage everyone to get outside for 20 or so minutes a day, lower your cortisol levels. It can take it down by like 30%. Just stay outside for 20 or 30 minutes and do some deep breathing.
Well, people don't, the reason breath work, I always try to line the science behind it, because if you tell someone to do breath work, they're just like, it's fine, I know how to breathe.
Yeah.
But like the science behind it is, and also like the just common knowledge is that the reason you're stressed is because you're worried about something that happened or is going to happen.
That's right.
You're not in the present moment. When you
That's
do
right.
breath work, you are forced to think of your breathing, because we breathe autonomously every single day.
Yeah.
So when you kind of slow down and you focus on the breath coming in, the breath coming out, opening up your airways, you're now focused on the present. You're not worried about what's going to happen in 10 minutes. You're not worried about the laundry you got to do, or the email that you just got 20 minutes ago of your boss yelling at you. You are now focused on being present in the moment. The reason that you lose your appetite when you're stressed is because your airways are being constricted.
Right.
So when you take 5, 10, 15 minutes to breathe, you're opening up those airways. You're opening up your diaphragm in your chest and your stomach for you to be able to actually breathe and let that food come back in. So that's one of the biggest things I realize with people is that, are you having some shortness of breath issues? Are you super stressed? Yes. Okay, take 10 minutes, take some deep breaths, follow this breathwork practice I have for you, and in 10 minutes they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better.
The other thing and the last thing I think that would be helpful to go through, that I know I personally didn't do enough of, now I'm doing more of, but I think it's something that is often missed, is just stretching too. And so maybe just if you have any kind of little tidbits or reminders, anything that you can encourage people with on the importance of stretching, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I actually have everyone do specific mobility exercises for whatever pains they might have or the types of job that they have.
Okay.
So like the way I go about stretching and mobility is dynamic movement before your workouts and then stretching after, or just do mobility workouts at home. And it takes 5 to 10 minutes.
What is a mobility workout?
So mobility workout can be something that's challenging your joints, your tendons, your tissues without actually causing any pain. Just hanging on a pull-up bar.
Yeah.
Like hanging on a pull-up bar, let your spine decompress and pretty much just stretch the entire body by just hanging on a pull-up bar. So I'll have people do different things like a sleeper stretch with kind of just loosening up your rotator cuff. But most of the people in 9 to 5 jobs, you're at a desk the entire day, your shoulders are hunched forward, you have lower back pain. So just taking 5 to 10 minutes on just doing different like yoga poses, different modifications of that. But what I stress very highly is, do not go to a point of pain, just to a point of slight discomfort, but no pain. Something just kind of challenging yourself, but not pushing you to a point where you're going to get hurt.
The other, I think this is a good one to end on too, is hydration. Again, very basic, elementary aspect of our day-to-day life, right? Breath, water, nature. We're talking about some simple things, but again, most people aren't drinking enough water. So how does hydration play a role in fat loss? And how does hydration play a role in just overall health?
Well, I mean, the simple answer is that if you don't have enough water in your system, your nutrients aren't being shuttled to the proper tissues and to the proper organs. And so, again, it kind of goes back to the gut microbiome. If your body's not digesting the nutrients properly, it's not going to do much for you.
Yeah.
So the more water we have in us, and obviously in balanced amounts, the better the fat loss is going to be promoted. You said you always want to be lowering our cortisol. There is a point where cortisol, we can have cortisol so high to where now it drops down below where we want it. And so there's something that I've learned through several mentorships, that it's not really recognized by modern MDs just yet, which is called adrenal fatigue. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, I had that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I had in like my mid-20s. Yes.
So that's kind of where you mentioned earlier, where the sympathetic drive is so important, when you to handle stressful situations.
Yeah.
And usually what I notice with people is there are some people who get very stressed to the point where they kind of have panic attacks.
Yep.
And there's some people who get so stressed to the point where they just fall asleep because they're so stressed.
I was just talking to someone the other day who was getting so stressed they were having panic attacks. Yeah. So what's going on in that situation?
So it gets to a point where like cortisol is secreted by the adrenal glands.
Yeah.
And so if you are not if you're overproducing cortisol to the point where you're chronically stressed, you're stressed all the time, again, whether it be work, relationships, or training or whatever it might be, it gets to a point where the adrenal glands are like, look, I can't keep making this. I'm out of cortisol. We need to stop.
Yeah.
So it gets to a point where, like, when I get lab work done with clients, I like to have it within like the 12 to 14 range. High cortisol is like in the 20s and 30s. It gets to a point where I've seen people have maybe 4, 5, or 6 cortisol, and again, it's not a huge issue if they're not symptomatic, but if they're very high stress people, they're very tired people, very fatigued people, then we don't want to be lowering cortisol anymore. We want to support the adrenal gland so we can produce that cortisol again. So that's something where, I'm not, cortisol becomes like such a big topic with people always wanting to lower it.
Yeah.
Where sometimes I would, urge people to get that tested to make sure that you can see where it actually is.
Yeah.
And you can even get a more accurate test called a spit test.
Yeah.
And kind of test your cortisol curve and see where in the day you are the most stressed.
Yeah.
And that's when you can utilize different supplements like, ashwagandha,
Right.
sensoril, because you can see which part of the day your cortisol is at its peak and it's way too high.
Yeah.
And you can implement a supplement like that to lower it back and within range.
Let's close by just kind of a quick and easy 3 things that everyone should be doing for fat loss and just general day-to-day health. What are your top 3 things?
I'm going to say work out as many times a week as you can, but no more than 5.
Okay.
I will say eat 3 to 5 meals a day and have fruits in at least 2 of them.
Okay.
And then walk at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. I think if anyone who wants to lose weight, you do those 3 simple things, you will lose a couple pounds fairly easily. And then from there, you're kind of already building the habits you need to start creating a little bit more intensity in those habits.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This has been awesome.
Yeah, this was awesome.
This is very fun.